I know Venezuela inside and out. I have a ton of sources on all sides. And what I'm telling you right now is Maduro knows. The handwriting is on the wall. You know, he had a good long game there. He lasted a while. Don't forget Hugo Chavez coming into power. Gosh, I was a young analyst at Goldman Sachs. I remember this well. Maybe around 1999, and we all thought, okay, we really needed to worry about Brazil and the guy that was taking over there because he was a complete commie, right? He had run the union and everything. Well, he still is, but he did okay for a while in Brazil. It was the Chavismo movement that was such a problem and such a tragedy, if you would, for Venezuela. That was carried on after Hugo Chavez's death by none other than Nicolás Maduro. And he's done so with a pretty heavy hand, and it's been an absolute disaster because the economy has just tanked. You've gone from the highest standard in all of Latin America to the lowest standard, like overnight. By the way, let that be a warning to everybody in New York that might be thinking about voting for Mamdani. Guess what? These things don't end well. They really don't. For the people, they end terribly in misery. So Donald Trump weighing in on this just moments ago from all the way from overseas. I want to show you.
We have Venezuela acting up in a different way. They continue to send people that we rebuff to our border. They continue to send drugs into our country. Venezuela, they've been very nasty, and we can't let that happen. But we have other countries too. We do have, and this is just getting a little off subject, but we have now the safest border we've ever had. And I think in many respects, we probably have the most successful, and I say it all.
Yeah, we do have a much, much, much safer border. And forgive me, that was from earlier in the summer when he was over in Scotland. But he's known about this for some time, and it's been on his radar, and he's been focused on it. Don't forget, he was focused on it before when he was there for the first time around. And Nicolás Maduro and he have never quite worked it out. And, we decided to take some action. You may recall the other day, there was that boat that we believed to be carrying some illicit substances, and we took that boat out. It was a pretty serious move, a move that has gotten condemned by some on the left, but you got to take them with a grain of salt because they'll condemn everything. And the idea here is that you're just not going to allow drug trafficking into the United States. The Department of War, that's what it's now called. They went back to the original name. The Department of War issuing a statement the day before it became the Department of War, as Department of Defense, DOD, saying today 2 Maduro regime military aircraft flew near a U.S. Navy vessel in international waters. This highly provocative move is designed to interfere with our counter-narco-terroring operations, and the cartel is running Venezuela is very strongly advised not to pursue any further effort to obstruct, deter, or interfere with our operations there to counter all of this. So they're a little upset in Venezuela. They said they're coming for Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War. Watch out, they're onto you. Look out, Pete Hegseth. The Venezuelan Navy is coming for you.
Alistándose por la defensa de la paz y la soberanía. Aquí vamos. Padre, aquí el motor. Mira ya la Fuerza Armada. Nuestra Fuerza Armada siempre acompañándonos. William.
Okay. Sorry, I had to have a little fun, right? We need a little levity because it actually is a really serious situation. You've got 8 warships now heading to the Caribbean, a nuclear attack submarine. You've got a surveillance aircraft. They've all moved into the Southern Caribbean. As Donald Trump promises to take on Venezuela and to take on TDA and to prevent all the bad stuff from coming up into the United States of America. Now, Nicolás Maduro is like, okay, what do I do? So he's come back saying, okay, I'm starting my own DEA effectively in Venezuela. So trying to show some good faith. The problem for him is, he's got Marco Rubio now as Secretary of State. Okay, so that's kind of a big problem for Nicolás Maduro. Those two have a little history. They go way, way back. I mean, remember when the electric grid went out in Venezuela and Maduro was blaming Rubio for that one? Not the case, but in other words, Rubio does actually want to see change there because he fundamentally believes it, right? I mean, he's from Florida, he's Cuban. They don't like communism and socialism and people trampling all over freedoms there in some parts of Florida, including the part that Rubio comes from. So this is becoming now a bigger and bigger issue, with Pete Hegseth, of course, weighing in on the situation there on Fox the other morning. My former colleague, let's listen in.
The only person that should be worried is Nicolás Maduro, who's running effectively as a kingpin of a narco state, not actually elected and indicted for $50 million by the United States. And we know he's involved in the types of drug running that has affected the American people directly. So China and other countries are going to say certain things, and that's their prerogative. What we have there in the Caribbean is a clear demonstration of military might. President Trump has shown, whether it's the southwest border, whether it's the Houthis in freedom of navigation, whether it's Midnight Hammer in Iran, that the precise application of American power can have incredible impacts and reshape dynamics around the world and in the region. So Nicolás Maduro, as he considers whether or not he wants to continue to be a narco trafficker, has some decisions to make, and that's all I'll say about that.
Oh, that's all you need to say. Again, along with 8 warships, a nuclear attack submarine, surveillance aircraft, all being moved into the Southern Caribbean as we speak, I'd say you're saying a lot, right? Okay, so you're saying a lot. The question is this really a war on drugs, or is it about something else? I'm going to tell you, because you know I'm a realist and I'm always going to level with you. This is about more than let's just counter and by the way, that's a real issue, right? But Mexico, Colombia, they're all involved in it. So why are you singling out Venezuela? You know why you're singling out Venezuela? One, because of the communism dictatorship, right? That is awful for people to live under. And 2, because, all right, we're realists here on the Trish Regan Show. They get a lot of oil. They got so much oil. I've been to this particular region, the Orinoco region, heavy, heavy, heavy oil, but we got the technology, right, to get it out of the ground. They got all this oil there. So that makes them so much more interesting and compelling in terms of, let's be honest, where do we pick our battles? We got a lot of oil sitting right there in the backyard, like 3 hours from Miami, and we can't get at it because you got somebody in the way. And I thought for a moment like he was going to get out of the way and he was going to let U.S. energy companies in and we were going to have access to all this stuff. It would make us less dependent on the Saudis. We could diversify a little bit. It is right here in our hemisphere, but that wasn't the case. So now we are making it known that there needs to be a change. And Marco has made this extremely clear, and people want it.
It's turned in by one of his close allies around him. Or what if he decides to negotiate his exit? Then what? Will this woman hear your name?
Maria Teresa Morín.
Maria Teresa represents the opposition party in Venezuela, Maria Corina Machado. And so tell us what you think will happen if he steps down.
First of all, I think justice, the liberation of all the political prisoners in Venezuela, the transition to a democratic government, no more human trafficking, no more poisoning the people of America, especially the young people, no more smuggling arms smuggling. It's going to start a new era for all Latin America, and not only for Venezuela. I think it could mean the liberation also of the region, Cuba, Nicaragua, Bolivia. So I think...
Yes, a lot of people here saying they expect a domino effect if Venezuela goes down.
That's just great. So that's Rachel Duffy, wonderful woman, one of my former colleagues as well. I have a lot of those. I worked at a few networks along the way. Okay, so Rachel, who I do believe speaks Spanish as well, is talking to people about what it actually means. And I can tell you that there's a lot of people in the opposition, a lot of different factions in the opposition, but overwhelmingly, they want this freedom. They want to return to the days when they actually had freedom and capitalism and a chance to be something in Venezuela. You don't have that anymore. Again, New York City, for goodness sakes, take note with this Mamdani idiot trying to run for mayor. Meanwhile, okay, Maduro's out there saying, no. They just want to make me into the bad guy. For some reason, I'm the bad guy. That's all this is about. He's not entirely wrong, right? Every good story needs a good villain, and Mr. Maduro, for whatever reason, you seem to fit the bill.
Se renovó la presidencia de la República, se renovaron las 24 gobernaciones con voto popular, se renovaron las 335 alcaldías con voto popular, se eligió una nueva Asamblea Nacional para el periodo 2026-2030.
Forgive me, I realize you don't speak Spanish, but there is a translation there. He talks about, by the way, interestingly, this is happening on RT. Russia television. Okay. So this is giving you some insight. We're going to get into this about who his friends are. Okay. He likes the Russians. He likes the Chinese. He likes the Iranians. And he's talking about, they're just picking on poor old me because I seem to fit this idea. They get to, they can't say Maduro has weapons. He's complaining to Russia, or say about me what they said about, let's continue on here, probably about some of those, really bad guys out there. So they bring up these stories, Hollywood style, where Maduro is the bad guy. And then they are going to be the good guys in the movie. And that's how it's all being told. Well, we all know it's a little more complicated than that, right? To be fair to Mr. Maduro, a little more complicated. However, there are political prisoners there in Venezuela. There were Americans that were held in Venezuela that, I met the families of, and thank God they're out now. Remember the Citgo 6? They were Citgo employees, and they picked them up. I mean, this is not a good place, and we don't have a good relationship with them. And there were sanctions, etc., put in place. I can tell you this: Marco Rubio is going to make his career on this if he's successful. The big question is if, because I have a feeling, Maduro can be gone, like that can happen, and it probably is going to happen very, very, very soon. But then what happens next? And that's the question that Rachel, my friend Rachel at Fox, was trying to get at as well. Like, what happens next? Because you need to have something in place in order to not have total bedlam, right? We've seen this in some parts of the world. I hate to compare and contrast with Iraq, and I don't think these are similar really in any way, but it's an example, right? Maybe, or Libya, right? Where you have a dictatorship that just completely comes apart at the seams when you get rid of the bad guy. And so you got your person, and then what? Okay, so we need to be thinking about then what? Marco Rubio doubling down, as you saw him the other day, saying he doesn't buy anything the UN's trying to sell. He knows what's going on in Venezuela, and he's going back to the narco stuff. Listen. Oh, we can't hear it, can we? Hang on. Woohoo! I got it.
I don't care what the UN says. The UN doesn't know what they're talking about. Maduro is indicted by a grand jury in the Southern District of New York. That means the Southern District of New York presented the evidence to a grand jury, and a grand jury indicted him. And then a superseding indictment came out that was unsealed about 1.5 years ago that specifically detailed Maduro's actions. So number one, let there be no doubt, Nicolás Maduro is an indicted drug trafficker in the United States, and he's a fugitive of American justice.
And he's got the Department of War now after him, because he thought it might be a good idea to send a couple of aircraft to try and goose the guys on the naval ships. That was not a good move. You do not provoke the beast, for goodness sakes. I mean, come on. Do I have to show you my funny naval video again? I won't do that. But the point is, guys, come on. I mean, it's over, all right? So let's just plan the best thing for the country and for you and for the people, if you care about the people. I mean, apparently he just doesn't want to leave. He's been offered opportunities to leave. This has been an ongoing dialogue. In fact, I read an interesting piece by the guy who was running the policy down there. Let me see if I can show this to you, because he's got some suggestions. And basically his suggestion is, get out while you can, buddy, because you may not have this thing end so well. This is written by Elliot Abrams. Remember Elliot Abrams? He was running basically the Latin American Venezuela policy for Donald Trump in the first go around. And Elliot Abrams has a history. He was involved in some of the discussions with Noriega, and he knows a lot about this region. Of course, let me just get this front and center because I want to talk to you about this. And so we want this guy out. And I think Donald Trump these days, he gets what he wants, right? He gets what he wants. So let's think about how this would actually run. Could you just, offer him something up? Apparently they tried to do that, right? With Noriega, and as Elliot points out, he didn't make the right choice. In 1988, he said the U.S. engaged in negotiations with Panama's then dictator Manuel Noriega. Noriega had been indicted in Miami for drug trafficking. Oh, similar thing. Okay, we get the drug trafficking again. And we wanted him out of office and out of Panama. Gosh, it's like deja vu, right? I, he writes, was at the time Assistant Secretary of State for Latin America in the Reagan administration, working under Secretary of State George Shultz. To get Noriega out and return Panama to democracy, we offered him a deal. We said, hey, you know what? We're going to quash this indictment. We'll get rid of the indictment about the drug stuff if you'll just go. So here you go. We could do the same thing, right? Because he's wanted on drug trafficking, and that actually happened under Biden, and there's a $50 million bounty on his head. We could make all that go away. So apparently Noriega negotiated for a while, according to Elliot, but in the end, he refused. He claimed that he could not agree to save his scalp only and that he'd be abandoning others and blah, 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 blah. And I think he also figured that no matter what, somebody would knock him off. So maybe he didn't fully trust us. I don't know the answer. But it was a bad choice because eventually he spent, I guess, the rest of his life in jail. And so Elliot is saying, hey, Nikki, you know what? You got a choice. Don't do what Noriega did. Get out while you still can. So, it would be great because Marco Rubio would have a big win, Pete Hegseth would have a big win, Donald Trump would have a big win, Venezuela would have a big win, and guess what? We, the United States of America citizens, we'd have a big win. You know why? Oil. I hate to be so crass. I remember years and years ago, like early in my reporting career, back when we were first going into Iraq, and I was asking an oil analyst about this. And nobody talked about it because everybody's like, oh, democracy and freedom and democracy and freedom and do. And this guy said to me, and I'll never forget it, he said, this war is about oil. It's plain and simple about oil. And he said, there's nothing wrong with that. We need oil. We need lots of oil. And I was so taken back, right, to hear that. And it hit me. It was like, okay, yeah, this is the way the real world works, right? So in light of that, and because I'm always going to level with you and tell you how the real world works, yeah, we can talk about democracy and freedom, and it would be great for all the people there. That's like an added benefit, right, to be able to have a shot at something better. But this is why we care. Okay, the map I just put on the screen. This is why we care. It's called the Orinoco region. It's in Venezuela. It's the big special part of it. I highlighted in blue. Excuse my scribble. It's a little, I used one of those highlighter things. But anyway, that's the Orinoco region. We care about that. We used to have oil operations there until Chavez kicked everyone out because all those gringos were stealing our oil. Well, guess what? He can't do anything with the oil. Maduro can't do anything with the oil because these guys are clueless and they don't have the technology. And so consequently, the people are suffering. The oil's not on the market. We don't have access. And look, the handwriting's on the wall, for goodness sakes. You got AI that's exploding. And what does AI need? Energy. You got natural gas and lots of oil, heavy oil. So it's costly to get it out of the ground, but still, it's there. That's the dark green part, the one that is the Orinoco region. So let's not kid ourselves, right? This is oil that matters to us. Marco, maybe it's more about an ideological bent for him, right? Because again, like the Florida thing, and I feel passionately about that too, but I also am pretty concerned because you know who's been hanging out there lately in Venezuela? It's Chinese. They just went in. This story just coming up this week, maybe a day or two ago in Reuters, a floating oil facility just arrived in Venezuela for the China Concord project. Little more information on this, and I have confirmed this with sources. Charlotte, good to see you back here. I'm going to get to your comment in a second. The first new floating facility to produce crude at a $1 billion project operated by China Concord Resources Corporation in Venezuela has arrived in Lake Maracaibo, the country's second largest output region, according to two sources and images. The Chinese company, it's known as CCRC, is moving to ramp up, says Reuters, output at two key oil fields in western Venezuela, Lago Cinco and Lagunitas Lago, and hoping to reach 60,000 barrels a day by the end of next year from 12,000 BPD currently it is a rare boost from a private Chinese firm. Okay, so this is like not good. Can we go back to Monroe Doctrine? What are we doing with the Chinese in Venezuela? I mean, first of all, that's a little too close, right, for comfort. It's like the Russians in Cuba. And by the way, the Russians are down there too, and the Iranians, and like you take your pick. But this is a biggie, right? This just came out like within the last couple of days, news that there is a Chinese oil company setting up a flotilla there in the oil area of Venezuela at Lake Maracaibo. I don't think I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that? Just curious. I'm not okay with this. So lots of things are going on. I mean, I would say, understand there's a couple dueling views out there. My friend Rick Grinnell, constant presence on my shows at Fox. You may remember him. He was a Fox News contributor, and now he's like a special envoy to Latin America. Well, he kind of had a solution, it seems, but we don't know too much because they just retracted the intelligence report on Venezuela, like literally a couple hours ago today. Tulsi was like, yeah, we're not going to let this thing float out there. Now, why would that be? Well, perhaps because they didn't want to divulge too much of the deal points, because now we're back at the negotiating table and Marco's in charge now. So Marco is running the op. Rick had negotiated a few things, including getting our oil companies in there, but I don't think he negotiated getting Maduro out. And that's the sticking point now, because Marco's playing for a bigger win here. Marco wants Maduro gone because he wants the people, right, to have something. And so that gets us back to a little bit of the Americana, and we can feel good about that, I hope, so long as, let's be careful on this. And you know the president as well as I do on this topic. He's not going to send American troops down there where he's losing American lives because he wants to free the people of Venezuela from the tyranny of Nikki. Okay, like that's not going to happen. So Marco's going to have to be careful how hard he plays this card. It says Mr. Grinnell, who serves as an envoy to Venezuela, has been an advocate for negotiations with none other than Nicolás Maduro, whereas Marco Rubio has pushed for a more hardline approach. Exactly what I could tell you and what all of my sources have said. Meanwhile, Mr. Grinnell, Rick, has been looking for some kind of realistic deal approach that would allow American oil companies back in. I mean, before you say, well, who cares about oil? Let me just remind you that all of this AI stuff going on takes a lot of energy and a lot of nat gas and a lot of oil. And so that's why you want it, okay? We still need to be supreme. We want to drill, baby, drill all we can right here in the good old US of A. And then, you know, when you've got Canada there and you got Venezuela there, I'd be looking at all my ducks in a row, literally up and down. I think I wrote a paper in college, like way back when. Scared the heck out of my Columbia University professor who told me like I sounded a little too much like Pat Buchanan. But my point was, we're going to reach a stage where we really need supremacy over this hemisphere. Now, I'm not talking about, you know, we have to be the world's policeman or anything, but, you know, our borders matter. Borders matter. And in the case of a place like Venezuela, where they actually are rich with natural resources, all kinds of natural resources, including some gold, although they've depleted the country of a lot of that. You know, you got communists in charge. What do you expect? You know, the oil is a real thing. You also have a large population that at one point was pretty decently educated. Obviously, that has changed significantly, that once enjoyed a fairly decent standard of living, and that also is simpatico with us, at least, you know, in terms of the Western culture, religion, et cetera. A lot of Catholics there. So lots of reasons, right, for us to want to have a good relationship and us to want to have some of that oil. So we want to be careful of these dueling views, because here's what I'm going to tell you. The President of the United States, you know what he cares about? Results. So he wants results, and he does not want to risk any American lives. So my advice to Marco, if you're listening, you should come on, Marco. I won't do to you what Margaret Brennan does. I'll let you talk. But my advice would be, think this one through, do it, but think it through and know what the next steps are. Who's going to take over next? Are you going to hold elections? Can we say maybe negotiate some decent exit path for Maduro, because, you know, the guy's like kicking and screaming, doesn't want to go, could create quite a bit of trouble. So do you negotiate some kind of exit path, but put someone in that you know, and maybe it's Maduro, is going to allow for free elections in, say, 6 months? All right, or maybe sooner, maybe 3 months. Let's have some elections. There's some front runners out there, right? I mean, you had Capriles before, and you have Maria Corina Machado. There's a lot of people. Juan Guaido is kind of yesterday's news, but you have some people that could take over this and do so in a way that would be very beneficial for the country and very beneficial for us. So let's think through that and make sure that we have the right team in place. Is this, oh yes, I wanted to show you guys this. Remember when I was talking about China and how important it is to think about the Chinese risk in all of this? Maduro's no fool. He knows that. He went on and did this little TikTok about how great the Huawei phone is. It's, you know, so much better than Apple. By the way, the new Apple phone out today. My son is texting me about it. I think I'm actually going to get it, believe it or not. Little patriotism there, since Tim Cook said he's putting $600 billion into the US of A the other night at the White House. Anyway, he's trying to brag about his Chinese phone. Kind of stupid, because the Chinese are listening to everything he says.
Ahí me llega todo por aquí. Teléfono que me regaló, mira, Xi Jinping. Esto me lo regaló Xi Jinping. Huawei.
Again, I'm sorry. You know what? I speak Spanish. I'm the gringa that speaks Spanish. I'm actually Irish, but yeah, I speak Spanish because yo estudiaba en España. I studied in Spain, in Barcelona, when I was in high school, and somehow I have a good way with languages, so I speak a few languages. Spanish is one of them, so sometimes I forget, so forgive me on that. But basically, he's like, look at my phone. Isn't this terrific? It's from China. So that's a message saying, yeah, you know what? China's investing in us. China's taking our oil and we're somehow giving it to them, right? Did you hear that? US of A. So it's complicated. This is a long-winded way of saying, you know what, Maduro, his days are up, and we need to be smart. We need to be smart about what the plan is, who's going to take over for Maduro, when these elections are going to happen. We need to make sure they are free and fair. And let me tell you, a lot of people could walk into the job, and you just need to make sure you get the right one. Again, I'm a realist, right? We want somebody who's going to embrace the U.S., not China, who's going to embrace the U.S., not Russia. It's important. It's an important inflection in this particular moment in time. So, Nick, we wish you all the best. I don't think you're going to get to stay on. I think you know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. So, negotiate an exit strategy. And Marco, get a good plan together. We need it.